Hey kawan, welcome to EDCReady. Today we are doing a full review of this. This is the Ontario Rat2 in D2. Now before I continue, a couple of things I gotta mention. I won this guy on an Instagram giveaway by the EDC nurse. So do check him out on Instagram, do give him a follow and tell him that I said thank you. Mr.EDCReady says thank you. The next thing is that a lot of these parts here are modded. For example, the coating, I believe the basic one comes in a satin finish. These scales right here, I don't know if they're dyed or if they're aftermarket, but these typically come in black in the stock version. Last but not least, we have the clip right here. This is a titanium milled clip, I believe. The regular one comes with a typical spoon style clip like this guy. So yeah, I think that's everything I'm gonna say, everything you should know about before we start this review. So let's start this review with some measurements right here. So we're gonna measure this in inches. We have a blade length of right around 3 inches. We have a blade thickness of, I believe, hold on, let's adjust that. Okay, we have here a blade thickness of right around 0.1 or 0.0. I'm calling it 0.1. This is what I'm going to call it. We have here a handle thickness of 0.42 inches. We have a handle length of right over 4 inches, maybe 4.1 inches. And then we have here a width of the blade in 1.06 inches. And another dimension we're going to talk about is the weight. So while we wait for this to fire up, do check out the description box down below. You can check out how you can support the channel with Patreon account. Also, you can check out a link to thomasTools.com, which has helped support this channel in the past. Okay, coming in at 79 grams. I forgot how much that weighs in ounces. I will leave it in a comment down below. Alright, so let's get into the review from tip to butt. First things first, let's talk about the blade steel right here. The blade steel here, as you can see, is in D2. D2, in my opinion, is a good budget steel. It is tough. It holds its retention. Holds its edge quite well. So pretty good in terms of in the vicinity of budget steels. However, it is not the most stain resistant steel out there, especially compared to your 440 Akudo or your Japanese Akudo or your 440C. Some of my 2 other budget knives in my collection. Definitely something you gotta watch out for. I personally don't prefer D2 steel because I do live in a hot and humid country. However, the coating here definitely helps it out. By the way, this coating here is also aftermarket. This EDC nurse right here, this etching right here. So at the end of the day, D2 steel not something I would personally go for. However, the coating makes it a little bit more palatable. I'm in a stage where if I'm gonna get a D2 steel, then I much prefer it coated. If not, most of the time I will just look past it. The blade itself is very generic shape, and generic shapes means that it doesn't have any particular advantages, but it doesn't have any particular disadvantages as well. It has a nice amount of flat, which I like. It has a nice good belly right here and a relatively thin tip right there, just comparing it to my Gonzo, which has a much thicker tip and of course a much thicker blade stock right here. So a very good, like, generic versatile blade shape, very good for any kind of these slicing cuts that you want to do. Okay, very good at these penetrating cuts as well because it has a nice pointy tip right here. However, what I find is that you're gonna have to angle it up a little bit more to do any kind of these pulling cuts, which I do on a more regular basis, which is why I like this guy, because it has a much shallower blade. So to get there, as you can see, I don't need to turn up as much to pull it, whilst with this guy I gotta go all the way up and then pull it. But that's just personal preference. It's really down to what you expect from your day-to-day life. All in all, a good basic versatile blade shape. One thing I don't particularly like about this blade shape is that it sits a little bit above the edge of the frame here, which means that you can't get most of the blade onto the chopping board. You can really only get it up until the belly right there. You can't get any of the flat portions. It's perfectly fine if you do any kind of these levitating kind of cuts right here, but if you're cutting onto a board or something, it's not going to be ideal for you. Now overall, no particular stretch. It is a full flat grind, so not only is it a very thin blade stock right here, I believe 0.1 inches, but it's a full flat grind, which means it comes down to a pretty sharp edge right here. So this guy is going to be a pretty good slicer. Another thing I really like is this jimping. Now there are some jimpings out there that is very like sharp and rough, such as Spyderco's jimping tends to be pretty rough and has a lot of traction, like the Dragonfly, like my Para 3 lightweight. Some jimping, as you see here, are very smooth, to the point that it doesn't provide much traction at all. This guy is kind of like a happy medium. So if you like jimping but don't want too rough of jimping, this is going to be a great one for you. On top of that, the corners are actually rounded off. Let me see if I can show that off to you guys right there. Yeah, it's not focusing, but trust me when I say that these corners are rounded off. So it gives you good traction, but it's not going to cut your hands on the corner as well. Another thing I like about this knife is that the thumb studs, they're well placed, and they're placed on the part of the blade that doesn't get in the way of any kind of cutting. Sometimes if you're kind of cutting through something, you can kind of cut into the thumb studs. I don't really have a knife here to show you that. This guy is okay. This guy is okay as well. But you do get some knives where the thumb studs are sometimes all the way out here, so when you're pushing through something, foam or whatever, cardboard, it can kind of get caught up there. This guy, not that big of a problem. That's really great. One thing I don't particularly like about this blade is I already mentioned that it kind of rides up a little bit higher on the blade, but to choke up here, unfortunately, it's a smooth surface to get from here all the way up onto the blade, which means if you're ever choking up like that, like this on this blade right here, very easy for this finger to slide up onto the blade and then cut your hand. So you gotta keep that in mind. So ergonomically, the blade is not that great for you. Overall, it's a nice blade, a good budget steel. This coating helps with the corrosion prone D2 a little bit. It's not the worst in terms of corrosion prone steels out there, M4 and all that. All these hard wearing knives, all these tougher knives tend to be a little bit more corrosion prone. This is not as bad, but the coating makes it really nice. Talking about the thumb studs, sometimes you get thumb studs that are really sharp and kind of pointy and uncomfortable to use, but these guys are nice and comfortable, great for rolling. Okay, you can flick it, Spidey flick it, or you can thumb flick it. So all in all, very comfortable thumb studs. Now moving back to the pivots right here. Now one thing I really like about this is that the pivot is sunken in, so it's flush on the scale. So with some pivots, you can kind of stick out a little bit. This guy does it a little bit better. This guy is smooth as well, but it does stick out a little bit. This guy is nice and flat. No particular functional difference of having this compared to the other guys, but it's just a nice smooth surface, and that's just something I gotta point out a little bit. One thing I really do like about these pivots is that they are non-free spinning, which means that you can put a tool in here, which is a Torx T8. You unscrew, and then this will not spin along because there is a D shape in the pivot right here. You can check out the disassembly video that I created for you guys on my channel. So all in all, a pretty well designed pivot. It also has a lot of adjustability, if that makes any sense. Some knives, sometimes the screws are really short that you can only like tighten it to the max, and then it won't have any blade play. The minute you loosen it up a bit, then it's gonna introduce some blade play. This guy, you can tighten it up, and then you have some room for adjustability, which is very nice. So some people can get this really nice and fall shutty like this guy. Let's check that out. Yeah, it's nice and fall shutty even though it's on washers, and then you can get that without any blade play, which is fantastic. Really like it. Really like that part about this knife. Now the pivots, they are running on washers, and it's two kinds of washers. You have Teflon washers, and then you have phosphor bronze washers, and it's the same on both sides. So you kind of sandwich these two washers together. Is that ideal? No, I would have preferred full phosphor bronze on each side. But at the end of the day, being a budget knife, sometimes you gotta do that as a bit of a shortcut. The plastic or the Teflon washers just make sure that if there's any chance of slightly off tolerance or whatever, once you screw it in, then those more squishy, more flexible Teflon washers helps it center a little bit more, which kind of gives it this really nice action. Regardless, it has really nice action because it does have those phosphor bronze washers. This guy right here, 10 gram Santa Fe, it does a slightly different approach. It has two phosphor bronze washers and then a Teflon washer in between. So the Teflon washer kind of is sandwiched between two phosphor bronze, so you get that same kind of smoothness that you get from having full Teflon phosphor bronze washers, but you got that little bit of a gift from the Teflon. This guy is just as nice in my opinion. Just as, in fact, sometimes it's, I would wonder if I would actually consider this to be slightly smoother for some odd reason. Maybe just the tolerances are just a little bit better. Now moving back, let's talk about the lock bar. We have here a right around, I think around 40 or 50% insert, 40 or 50% lock bar placement on the blade tang, which is very nice. It's very secure lock. It's not gonna fail on you through the spine right test. You can do that as often as you like, and it's gonna be perfectly fine compared to this guy, which has been known to fail, right? So you don't want that. This is going to be pretty safe in terms of a line lock. As far as line lock goes, this is going to be pretty safe. One thing it doesn't have is that it doesn't have a detent ball ramp. So detent ball ramp is, you have this little detent on the lock bar. Once you disengage it, okay, the blade takes a little bit more effort to jump from the detent ball. The detent ball needs a little bit more effort to jump onto the blade right there. So sometimes some higher end knives will have a little detent ball ramp, which will make it jump up a little bit smoother. But you know what, it's a budget knife, so that's a-okay. Another thing I want to talk about these scales is that this knife in general is that it's very easy to disassemble. You just take out this screw, which is non-free spinning. You take out 1, 2, 3, 4. You do not need to take out the pocket clip. It comes out really easily. You clean it up, you put the washers back together, and then you just screw everything back in. This just has that feel that this is just a very easy, simple knife, and it shows. I really like simple knives. Knives sometimes that have too many things going for it can kind of be difficult to take apart, because I like taking apart my tools and disassembling it and maintaining it. This knife works really well. Let's talk about the scales here. We have here FRN scales, but it's done really nicely. These FRN scales almost feel like G10. In fact, if it is G10, I'm very sorry, please comment down below, but I'm almost certain it is FRN scales, but it's done really well. We have nice traction, nice grip, but at the same time, it's not so slippery. One thing I do not like about this knife is that the ergonomics are kind of weird. And that's my biggest complaint about this knife. Now, put aside this pocket right here. Put aside the spoon pocket, the spoon pocket clip right here. The knife actually feels slightly odd. Okay, so for example, if I'm holding, by the way, I wear like S size gloves, just so you know I have small hands. You can hold it like this, and holding it like this is comfortable, but then your thumb is all the way up here and you can't use the jimping. Let's say you need to use the jimping for a bit more traction. You press down on the jimping, and then it kind of lifts up the back of the knife a little bit, and then your pinky is kind of floating a little bit. There's nothing for your pinky to grab onto. So it's only really comfortable in like a hammer grip, or if you have your thumbs all the way up onto the spine of the blade right here, but not the jimping. If you want to use the jimping, it kind of lifts it up, and then you're kind of not holding it securely anymore. Now, the other option is that you can choke it up, which I already mentioned is quite dangerous because there's no guard for your finger to like avoid getting onto the blade. And once you do that, you kind of get this kind of float, because this finger trawl cut out right here. Comfortable if your finger is here, but when you're up here, your fingers kind of just feel just a little bit too far away from the rest of your hand, and if you want to grip it comfortably, this hand kind of floats in this finger trawl right here. So not the best ergonomics when it comes to knives. It's not bad, it's definitely going to be workable, but it's not bad, it's just a little bit awkward in my hand. So one thing I do like is that it has full liners from the front of the knife all the way to the back of the knife, which is very comfortable. Sorry, not comfortable, which is very strong. This knife definitely has a very solid feel. It has full liners, and then it has 1, 2, 3, 4 standoffs, which is one is a stop pin. It just gives it a very strong feeling in the knife. It feels just as strong as this guy right here, which also has full liners and a back spacer right here. It feels slightly stronger than this guy, although this guy has full liners. It just doesn't have as many standoffs. So if you're looking for a small knife that feels very solid in hand, this is definitely going to be a very good knife for you. Okay, so moving back, this pocket clip, I'm just going to talk about it a little bit. It's not the standard one, so keep that in mind. Titanium contoured clips right here. It doesn't carry the knife deeply at all. This much of the knife sticks out when you put it into your pocket, but it's great ergonomically. It kind of melts into your hand. It's nice and contoured. It goes into your hand very comfortably. I assume the pocket clip, the spoon style pocket clip, is not gonna feel as comfortable as this guy, but I'm just guessing it's gonna be okay. However, when you put this guy here, which doesn't fit by the way, but if you put this guy right here, you are still not gonna get a very deep carry pocket clip knife right here. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into the conclusion. What is this knife good for? This knife is a very good budget knife. If what you are looking for is, and if you are a reasonable person, you are looking for just a good, comfortable, relatively strong knife that you would just want to carry around, you just want to use, you are gonna enjoy the Rat2 in D2. Price wise, it's a little bit pricey. It's about 37 USD. It used to be about 30 or 32 USD. Right now it's gone up to about 37. So there are other budget knives that you can look at. Civivi makes really good ones. You have 10 gram Kaiser Vanguard. You have a lot of good budget knives coming out of China nowadays that you can get in place of this guy. Ergonomics are a little bit weird for me, and that's kind of the only thing that kind of turns me off. Sorry, that's the biggest thing that turns me off. Ergonomics are a little bit weird. One thing I do like about this knife is that it's nice and poppy. It's not the strongest D10, but it's definitely good enough to work, and the lock doesn't feel on you. So at the end of the day, if what you're looking for is a nice cutting tool, when I say nice, I mean safe. It is safe, it is well thought of, it's reasonably well designed, and it's a cutting tool that you know can stick by you through thick and thin. As long as you can take care of the D2 steel, this is going to be a good knife for you. As for me, I am going to pass up on this knife because this knife doesn't settle a few things for me. It doesn't settle a good blade steel that is corrosion resistant. It's not the best in terms of ergonomics, and no, at the end of the day, it is just one of those knives that I really like. I would show it off to, I would suggest it to other people, but it's not one of those knives that I would keep for myself just because I got other things. I got this knife right here that has a blade steel that is corrosion resistant, and then it also has a blade shape that I like just a little bit more than this guy. And then it also has a deep carry pocket clip, which I enjoy. Okay guys, hope you guys enjoyed this long-winded review. I definitely spoke way more than I needed to and repeated myself way more than I needed to. But as always, right now we're in this phase of the coronavirus and everyone's on lockdown or working from home. So just stay ready and stay safe.